Alrighty, here we are again, week 2, and I want to continue on with what we were doing last week. I had an excerpt of a book that I'm writing that I had shared with you guys, and I want to move into the next part of it right here. Now, if you haven't seen the last one, go ahead and watch it, but I'm going to go ahead and jump right in, and we'll see what you guys think. So, this is The Fact of Eternity Manifest. So, with this all said, there is more. This pain, suffering, and joy and love is an expression of God Himself, as we spoke about before. As we take basic building blocks of patterns, we begin combining them in various ways that allow for further complexity. Along the way, with what is not stable being pruned out through noise. Extending this forward, we have an unlimited, eternal possibility for existence. As consciousness has emerged in reality, this is the beginning of a low-resolution reflection of God appearing. Awareness is a reflection mirroring portions of God, His very consciousness emerging. Humans and animals interacting and shaping the world, observing it and creating low resolution models of it in their own minds. As the resolution increases, higher conscious forms and the more godlike we become. This is why there is a clear distinction between animals and humans, and why God has ordained man as his highest form of creation, which is pretty consistent through all religions. As we increase in knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, we become more like God. Though through this, we are like His offspring. And we are to take the pattern or patterns that are here and begin combining them in ways that have not been done before, in a way to make what is new in existence, becoming co-creators. If we in the universe take what is and begin pairing and mirroring it into new forms, we can create new forms of existence and potential new planes of existence where a meta universe may emerge, allowing the pattern to go on. This is our very purpose, to assist in creation and to add to it. This has the very potential, if extrapolated out, to go on forever, where whole new possibilities unimaginable may exist. Creation and existence may be able to go forward with the possibility to diminish all, if not most, suffering, and joys never imaginable may be able to come to exist. This is the inevitability of eternity. Let us pray we do not fall out of it and stay in the vine to the Father and exist in heaven for eternity. All right. Heaven's an interesting word, as a little tangent here. It has a lot of different meanings to different people. Some think of it as the Abrahamic religion, heaven. Some people think of it as space. And if I believe correctly, when I studied the Hebrew, the word heaven actually, or was it Greek? It means the ruling class is what is defined as heaven, which is very interesting when you think about it in context of this paper we're writing. So, all this being said, synergy is a concept of power existing when multiple inputs are combined. This is branching off the idea of putting old patterns together and allowing a new thing to emerge. So, with synergy, latency is reduced and more output is allowed during the off step of energy, both physically and mentally. This is why AC is preferred to DC energy, and 2 horses pulling a carriage can pull more than any 2 horses on their own could pull at their max. If you're not familiar with this, if you have 1 horse that can pull something like 600 pounds effectively individually, so you would think then that if you had 2 horses, they would be able to pull 1,200 pounds. But in actuality, they tend to actually pull something more like 2,500 pounds when teamed together. That's rough numbers, but the principle holds. If a world is built with more complexity and stacking smaller patterns on each other, new potentials emerge with new patterns that may never even existed before. Taking one pattern and inverting it with another and combining it with older, smaller patterns may create pathways that is new to the whole pattern, and a new entire route can be explored. This is the concept of eternity and how time might go on forever. As we stay true to what is beautiful and complex, avoiding noise, new can be created. This is our future and our divine destiny. Humanity, as we are, is limited by our animalistic biological makeup currently. Through technology, we have enhanced ourselves and our abilities on the higher end of consciousness, which is not accessible to all. If we are to advance in a way that allows for new creation, we must first establish stable patterns within our culture, society, and collective consciousness. For this to happen, understanding must be spread to the masses in order for new systems to be implemented. However, if the collective consciousness is not primed, the new pattern cannot be implemented. Oftentimes in history past, pain has been the only route to allow for conscious change in the zeitgeist. Wars, famines, natural disasters. After these events, many times in history past, once humans have suffered and burned off what can be known as karmic debt, is the old pattern of static non-definition burned off, and the way is shown. For example, the Israelites leaving Egypt were given a path to freedom, but squandered it by worshiping a golden calf, showing they had not passed the test and not deserving the freedom they desired. Because of this, an additional 40 years of wandering the desert was needed in order to burn off the old ways and remove from their psyches and their old habits to allow for new concepts and awareness to form in their mind. The medieval period, another example, where the feudal system was in place for hundreds of years of serfdom, where no man but the lords and kings owned land, and all were one step above slavery. Even freedom of religion was disallowed. Not until the Black Plague and debtors and lenders were wiped out were people then retrained to become more responsible, and gave way to the Renaissance, a period of time where low-class man had a path to private ownership of land and choice of different religion. Trade was the progress of the time, and a mingling of religions from the world coexisted in Europe's trading ports. Alchemy came to exist even, which was a real deep thought on religion. Next, the Enlightenment period, a time of heavy taxation on the populace, where the elites became unimaginably wealthy, where ownership was allowed but taxation had no representation. Heavy-handed government officials harassed people, confiscated land and property for royalty. This caused heavy rebellion across Europe. The French overthrew their monarchy. The colonies fought the Revolutionary War against the British. Much blood was shed. This gave way very quickly to the Industrial Revolution. Again and again, the pattern repeats. Societies create a new system and then dogmatically attempt to keep the system the way that they have always been, to preserve power, to preserve identity, the fear of death, not letting go. But these systems have a way of burning themselves out through a pruning, repeating a pattern again and again, trying to hold on without allowing the new way to unfold, leads to this death and bloodshed. This is inevitable. Even now, since the Revolutionary War, we have entered recently the Industrial Era. In 1775, the first factory was produced in Britain, and in 1776, the American Revolution began. This is not coincidental. Now, the purpose of the war was not to begin the Industrial Revolution, but was a conglomeration of factors. But the purpose from an unconscious source was to bring in a new system or pattern, all from the minds of the Enlightenment figures who observed and perceived their environment and wrote books to bring new vision into the collective consciousness of humanity. These observers, or those who had, the ability to have perception, are the ushers of the future. John Locke, Thomas Paine, Voltaire, Thomas Jefferson, and many more. It is then only through a conflict of some type that these collective consciousnesses of the masses will let go of the old ways, because the pain has become too great holding on to the past, that a new way will be unfolded and received. As of now, we are still existing in the post-World War II system to an extent. A time when the Industrial Revolution created powerful nations that boomed in growth. A machine was created that grew an appetite for reproduction and consuming that outpaced the availability of resources of any large nations. The Germans, for example, expanded primarily to obtain more land and food for their people. This was obvious at the time, and many European thinkers, I think his name was Hermann Sorgel, noticed this would be a problem in the new world of the industrial era, and even drew plans to dam off the Mediterranean Sea so that more land could become available for all of Europe, and Germans could expand peacefully due to more shoreline becoming available. This war gave way to new technology, World War II, that already had been underway. Nuclear power. This would solve many resource problems, even for the Japanese that entered the war invading Korea, due to the fact they did not have enough oil, enough resources. This conflict forced the solution that was needed, even though the sacrifice of hundreds of thousands of Japanese was the price for it to happen. Japan and Germany now have some of the most nuclear reactors in the world, which has solved a good portion of their problems, and that's in relation to per capita. This technology has also now provided a long period of peace through nuclear deterrence, which has also allowed for a large amount of peace globally for nearly 100 years. With this power has come a new problem. And when I say peace for 100 years, I mean no major wars. There's been plenty of conflicts. But with this power has come a new problem, another dead end in the pattern. And this is where we lead into the information age. This nuclear power has given way to superpowers that now have a total influence over other countries, not allowing them to industrialize and begin consuming resources. If you have read about the last 100 years, it is very clear that a major purpose of the superpowers in the world has been to keep a large amount of other countries from industrializing. Now, I'm not saying good or bad, I'm just saying it's what it is. Muammar Gaddafi, he tried to bring up Libya. You had Afghanistan, Saddam, even though what he did was wrong, invading Kuwait and whatnot, they were trying to gain more resources and get onto some types of different financial systems outside of the US so that they could industrialize. But this could not be allowed to happen because there was not enough resources for the whole world to industrialize. So, influence. This nuclear power is given superpower to influence, allowing industrial become. All right. This has allowed the United States to put the majority of the world in check through financial dominance backed by nuclear power. In this stalemate of progress, information has become the key focus to monitoring and surveilling any that might become a threat, at the same time allowing enlightenment in the populace that is making them aware of all the ways they are being held down from building out their nations and personal lives, all for the sake of the three major nations to maintain the control established since World War II. As information becomes available to all, the collective consciousness will raise and demand a fair financial system, where not only will private property be allowed with the combination of power of the Industrial Revolution and wisdom available from the information age. This new demand and growth in collective consciousness will lead to new rebellions, which are already forming, and as a result, governments will unleash the power from technology onto the people, which will cause a great tyrannical war, which will lead to much bloodshed and chaos, as the superpowers will cooperate at first to control their populace collectively, but in the fray turn on each other and become overwhelmed by fighting multiple fronts internally and externally. Upon their dissolution, which I pray is not nuclear, a succession to individual self-sufficiency paired with industrial and technological progress will make a decentralized culture for much of the world, and humanity will finally have become worthy of what will be the space age, where resource and space will no longer be a constraint, but our inner minds will become the thing to truly understand, and the limitations of our bodies will be explored to extending lifespan, physical and psychic abilities. This world we live in seems to follow a process, and it's a pattern that is fractal, it's repeating. Many historians say history rhymes or something like that. I think it's because we live within constraints of patterns and material and mathematics that we see these things happen over and over. And if we understand the true purpose, this is all God exploring himself, understanding himself, breaking himself into individual parts. We have to go through each step, and we have to go through all the experience of it to reach this. Now, total collapse, I think, will never truly happen, from the sense that the universe comes to an end. But to think that we are, as a people in this time, to survive these things, that's not a guarantee. But in order to pass the test, to move forward, we have to, as much as we can collectively and individually, become more aware and understand better the systems of our world and how things exist. This requires personal development. And this is something that I would like to explore next, and how to do so. Now, these ideas are unrefined. They're things that I've written down that they've kind of bounced around my head for over a decade, but a lot of it's becoming much more clear to me. I think these are the things that need focus on. And with all of the many benefits we've had for the last 100 years and all of the amazing things, I don't think it's been truly internalized on the individual levels so that it can be integrated seamlessly. And we have to go through a period where we appreciate all the advances we have. And unfortunately, I think that's through a lot of collapse in what is the first world. And that's when there'll be an understanding of how things should be. And that's what I expect next. I don't know when, I don't know how fast, but the pattern seems obvious and the steps seem clear. So if you think otherwise, happy to hear it. I'd like to be as truthful and true as I possibly can and understand things as best as I can. So with that, if you have any questions, please let me know. Hey, have a good one, guys.